Okay, we're gonna try to start screaming. Try to start streaming again. Yes. Okay, so now I have to go to the actual stream. God damn it, y'all. Let's get rid of that. Okay, because this thing for some reason does not show me messages. So let me see if it'll give me the live chat. It's literally giving me nothing. I have one concurrent viewer, so that could be me. Whatever. Yay, I see somebody who's not me. Oh my god, can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear that I'm talking? Because I have no feedback unless I want to get a horrific echo. I think we have some pretty serious drag time. Fantastic. All right. Hey, this is Skullgirdle, and welcome to Shadow Noir Final Analysis. This is the video that goes with the eyeshadow video I did in black and white, Shadow Noir. I posted it last October, I think late October. This is extremely tardy. As ever, life has happened a lot. It's been very busy. I have, since I did that, I traveled to Europe for a month. I came back. I'm in the US now and have changed jobs. I've sold my house. I've moved. A lot of things have gone on. So I apologize for the lateness of this. However, we're here now. Let's crank this out. So when I did Shadow Noir, it was a video that just grew and grew and grew. And the idea changed a few times. And ultimately, I settled on what you saw if you actually watched that video. So it kind of came from realizing one day that I had 10 different black eyeshadows. I was like, man, I really got to use that black eyeshadow up. And I was just kind of curious to which eyeshadow was the best. I just wanted to know which one was the best. And so I started looking on, well, YouTube and like articles, Google, all that kind of stuff. And I could find like 5 or 7 eyeshadows compared, but I didn't see what I felt like was pretty comprehensive that compared from the lowest end that somebody could find all the way to the highest end in the price range. So I started collecting eyeshadow, and this project was conceived like almost 3 years ago. It took a lot of time to collect so much frickin' eyeshadow. There was a shitload, and overall, in the end, I actually had 47 black eyeshadows. Yeah, I said that, 47. And that doesn't count the ELF that I threw out. Didn't make it into the video because I felt like it was such a piece of crap that it wasn't even worth me making the effort. So once I decided to do this, then I had to figure out how I was going to show the eyeshadow and how I was going to make it really consistent. So the first time I came and started videoing, because I don't have any film, but the first time I came and did the video for it, I had put a secondary, whoops, sorry, I have a tiny table that I live in a much smaller space than I did before. I had taken and like pretty much painted my eyes shut with black eyeshadow, as we all love to do because it looks amazing. But then I used different colors with it. And I realized after I had made 11 of the videos for that one, and at that time I was planning to do 42. Oh my God, right? After I'd done 11 of those videos, I realized that the secondary color was different, and I was doing this in black and white. I had already gone through the process of trying to take color video and make it black and white because I could not get the black and white setting on my camera to work for me. I had to figure that out twice because it reset itself a couple of times. Anyway, so then 11 videos, all edited, starting to string them together, and I started from scratch. And I was just like, I'm going to go back and redo this because what I did sucked. I was not happy with it. And I know it looks like I just go, I think I'll make a video today and start yammering on about nothing. But I do actually plan out what I do, even if it seems like utter chaos by the time I do it. So I started practicing to make sure that I could do this fast because I was doing it in the morning before work. There were 35 shadows. A lot of stuff happens when you're doing stuff with makeup because in black and white and up close, it's not very forgiving. So you can see just how damn old you look. Okay, making sure I have a button. I was like, oh God, what is that? It says end stream. Hopefully we're okay. So, yeah. If I had a particularly shitty skin day, I did not do my videos. If I woke up late, I couldn't do the video. If I had to work early, I couldn't do the video. If for some reason I just didn't feel like it, then I wasn't going to do the video. So it took me, and there were some I threw out. I threw out quite a bit. Oh, thank you. You're very nice. That's very kind, Francisco. So it took me like almost 6 months to record those videos. It took a really long time to make it. And then I'd had somebody who was going to help me with some music, and that fell through. So then I had to come up with music, and I was like, oh, I'd already decided to do this dark, or black and white. I mean, black and white, because I thought, oh, that's so noir. Noir, black shadow, ha ha ha, you see. Oh, I think I'm so clever. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can read the type. Hey, Jess. Anyway, so I decided to I needed, hang on, what was I forgot. Oh yeah. Then I decided to do the title cards. And I had been practicing with copperplate calligraphy. And I started working with that. Didn't like it. So then I decided to watercolor every single piece and come back, and on the dark ones, just the intro and the exit, go with white ink with a pointed pen on watercolor paper. It was exceedingly difficult. It was a very ambitious project that I didn't realize how ambitious it was until I was looking down this long road of, oh my God, what have I done to myself? Anyway, you're about to see the actual colors of those cards because every single one of them was watercolor painted separately. And quite a few of them have 2 or 3 versions of them. You'll only see the one. These are the actual ones I used to keep myself in line with what I'm doing. So then I needed a soundtrack, and I didn't have one, and I didn't want to get copyright strike. So I decided to use my Ableton 11, or who cares, whatever, a recording software with some effects, and I just kind of hummed or sang. And yes, there are words in there. If you listen, you may or may not be able to tell what they are, but I made my own soundtrack because I didn't want to get a copyright strike. So yeah, this was all me. It was all me. I learned a little bit more about video editing. That's a long process of learning, especially when you're just learning so you can get your videos made and you're not trying to do anything fancy. Anyway, so that's kind of the story behind it. And I've had quite a few comments. I don't know how many I've answered because, quite honestly, over the pandemic, I don't know about y'all, but shit got weird, people got meaner, and I posted opinions that people should be equal and not killed for being who they are. And that was a problem for a lot of people. So I was like, fuck it, that is a cesspool of comments. I used to answer every single comment on this channel all the time. Every comment. Even if it was hi, I might come back and say, hello, how are you? I answered every comment. I promise it's water, not vodka. I know when I live stream, I usually drink a lot, but I'll probably have some cocktails later, and I didn't want to be drunk at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Today. Anyway. So that is the background story, and I figured I'd do this in a live stream in case anyone had any questions. So I've got to have my glasses on. I've got requisite black eyeshadow. If you're wondering, this is actually Makeup Forever, and the other colors are Lethal Cosmetics. All right, so here's the opening card. Come on, camera, catch up. All right, Shadow Noir. That was my kind of cheesy name. And just, these are all actually some form of black. a film by Skullgirdle, comparing 30 plus black eyeshadows. It was 35, I believe. Oh, did I say by Skullgirdle twice? That's fine. That's fine. I really do love calligraphy. So, oh, thank you. That's so kind. The control. So I did a control with a really good standard that I highly recommend if you want a really good black eyeshadow that's going to be usable every single day, that'll last you for a long time. I was going to say Skull Candy. Sugar Pill. Sugar Pill Black and Sugar Pill Red, which is Love Plus. I forget black. Is that called Bulletproof? Really excellent if you do the red and black. Like some goths do red and black and gray and all that kind of stuff, and some of us don't. So it's up to you. But I highly recommend the Sugar Pill. I have found it to be consistently great eyeshadow. Bulletproof. Haha, I was right. All right, so pat, pat, whoops. That's okay. I guess I haven't used these anymore. Pat, pat, pat. You can see here's the first one that's in a color. I wanted there to be a lot of variance between the cards. And so they're all different colors. And you're about to see, they are all different colors. So the first shadow, I'm going to put this over here because it's a pile this thick. The first, oh yeah, you can see here, I'll show you. This is all of it combined. This is how thick all of the cards were. And I took off the fin, the end, all that stuff. Yeah, I love Sugar Pill. It's a great brand. It's also an indie. I believe they're still an indie brand. Indie brands get bought up by the big ones. So as you buy indie brands, if you're really hell-bent on buying and supporting indie brands, research them once in a while. Just research. And also there's a little bit of work going on in the house I'm at today. We've had a little issue with the freezer out in the garage. All right. First shadow was Wet n Wild. It does not get less expensive than this. That shadow was $1.29. And I had to search for that one. I couldn't find it. I shopped and shopped and shopped. It was one of the last ones I got. I looked for it all over, and I didn't want to buy a bunch of Wet n Wild eyeshadow because I felt like I had too much makeup already. I know it sounds like a travesty of justice, but I wasn't using a lot of it, so I wanted to cut down my collection. You're welcome to laugh. I realize that I wound up with 40, did I say 42 or 47? I don't even remember. I say it's 42. It might have been 47 black eyeshadows overall. Wet n Wild, I don't think you could beat the bang for the buck. The method I used, I pat color on. Like I pat it on because I want to limit my fallout with black, because cleaning up under here, like you get a lot right in here with black eyeshadows, and there's very few that didn't just spill its guts under your eyes. So that pat, pat, pat method, I would go in light and then I would just build it up until pretty much I have enough eyeshadow on for 4 people. At least 4 people. Because I wanted a rich, deep black. I wanted to see just how black I could get every eyeshadow. I used the same underneath. So underneath, first of all, as we're talking about Wet n Wild, I don't want to forget about the shadow. Before I go on, underneath I used MAC Paint Pot. I used the same exact, and I mean the same pot of MAC Paint Pot as my primer for my eyeshadow, because that was absolutely necessary to me to have consistency for the primer for your eyeshadow. I mean, otherwise the tests are kind of all over the place, right? So I wanted to use that same primer. And I'd say for me personally, MAC Paint Pot is one of the best that I've used. I have used the Urban Decay, but it's so sticky that my eyelids stick together. I've used the Balm. I've used the Too Faced. I don't buy Too Faced anymore. Just because Jared's icky. I've used NYX. I've used all sorts of stuff. Make My Day and Thank Me Later, I think, is the one. So for me personally, MAC Paint Pot or Thank Me Later are the 2 best. And I wanted absolute consistency. So back to Wet n Wild. Wet n Wild, $1.29 for a single little shadow. I feel like Wet n Wild is one of those brands that you're going to get the same quality in a single or in a multiple shadow compact. And for $1.29, you really can't beat it. If you're on a budget or you just want to try some black eyeshadow because you're not used to using it, I highly recommend Wet n Wild. Just remember, it's not going to go on super dark right away. Black rarely does. A few of them did. Boy, did they. But give yourself some time, practice with it. And for me, I use Vaseline or cold cream to remove eye makeup because my cellar water tears up my eyes. So keep something where you can fix mistakes. A lot of mistakes if you're me. But I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was, oh, these are out of order. Oh my God, y'all. We just can't if these are out of order. They're definitely out of order. Okay, I have one out of order. Okay, so the second one, whoa. Yeah, okay. I knew one was missing. The second one is Maybelline. And Maybelline is one of the larger American brands, US brands. At $3.99, not worth it. Get the Wet n Wild. I thought the Maybelline was okay. It went on okay, about like I expected it to. It lasted okay. In fact, it worked a little bit better than I thought. But if you're on a budget and you need to keep your expenditures low, then I would go with the Wet n Wild if you can get it. In a similar price range, we have, oh wait, NYX is next. Sorry. I'm trying to be very exacting on the price. You have NYX. I don't even know if you can read this one. You can barely see it here. It's really ugly colors, but it is what it is. We're fine. With NYX, it's $4.95. I know it's an extremely well-loved brand. It's been purchased by a larger company, and I can't remember if it's the L'Oreal company. It was okay. It was a little marginally better than Maybelline. Maybelline was not the worst one for me. But if you're going to go for a $5 eyeshadow, I feel like there are better choices. Back to the Wet n Wild. And like I said before, ELF didn't even make it into the test because when I first tested it, when I was starting to try to figure out my method for the black eyeshadow, it sucked so bad that I threw it out. I literally threw it out. I was going on a cruise, oddly. Cruises are not my thing. Now I know that. The ports where you can get off and go to a great place, that's my thing. But the cruise itself, not my thing. But I was on a cruise, or in the hotel the night before the cruise on my birthday, and I got myself room service and a very long nap. I have to say, that is a really nice gift for yourself. This is just loll about with room service and, oh, okay. Oh, that's, L'Oreal's the next one, so we can talk about that. Anyway, ELF sucked. Bad. And NYX was disappointing. It was okay. It was disappointing. I think that it's one that you'd need to be able to refresh. So that brings us to L'Oreal, which is not a brand I use because L'Oreal goes back and forth. They will say they don't animal test. Somebody discovers they animal test. Then they come back. They're like, oh, we don't animal test. Somebody discovers they animal test. And apparently they support Amber. I'm thinking Amber Heard. Are you talking Amber Heard? And I could see with the trial of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard why you might be a little bit disenchanted there. So that actually makes sense. I personally do not usually support brands that I think are full of shit. That L'Oreal is it's the only L'Oreal thing I've owned in a long time because when I was younger I used to love, they had this weird lavender lipstick. So yeah, but they do go back and forth with animal testing, and to me, that's kind of unacceptable. Now here we go. Here is what we all like to think of as a goth brand, Stargazer, out of, I think it's out of England. It might actually be out of London. This was $4.99. I would say Stargazer comes in definitely above Maybelline, and I'd say a little bit better than L'Oreal. It's a well-loved by goths brand. Sometimes you can find colors there that you can't find anywhere else. They make a white base and a white powder. They make a black lipstick. These are, I think, standard for their line. They have, I'm always looking for a brand that has like a black, a red, a cobalt blue, and a bright green eyeshadow, and Stargazer tends to have those. I thought that this was pretty good. Not bad. It's $5 eyeshadow. I got it on eBay, and these prices are I'll say pre-recession. But so we don't really know what's going on with prices right now, and everything's weird, and inflation is exploding. So please take these with a grain of salt. These prices are 6 months to a couple years old. Sorry. And here's one that was shockingly disappointing. ColourPop. ColourPop is a brand, y'all, that when they make something that's good, it is good, and nobody can beat them. Nobody can beat them. Their Super Shock eyeshadow, that one bright pink one, is a must-have in my collection at all times color for me. And it is one of the best eyeshadows. It stays bright, it lasts, it's gorgeous. It did not translate to their black, which was going on gray. I was so grateful to actually get black out of that, kind of, but no, that was, that of everything I've shown you in the lower priced, I call it lower price level, $10 and under for an eyeshadow, that was probably the worst. It was shit. Yeah, and I was kind of surprised, but again, ColourPop can be really, really great if you want like a lot of colors and just to have a large selection. They're fantastic because they're inexpensive and they have a bajillion palettes. You can get bright shocking pinks, or you can get more muted pinks or baby light pinks, but they're black. Do not recommend. Yuck. Not great at all. They're Super Shock shadows in every color I've ever used. I highly recommend. Outstanding. And if it's a bright ass pink made by ColourPop, you can probably be rest assured that's going to be a kick-ass pink. All right, Inglot. Oh, that's right, I have to read. I was like, why do I have my glasses on? Anyway, Inglot is a Polish company. I believe they're still independent. You used to have to order them from Poland, and you just kind of hope you get your eyeshadow. It took forever. They are generally $6 an eyeshadow. They used to have these triple color bars that were $9, but your eyeshadows are going to go somewhere from $6 to $9 with them, I think, still today. And they consistently have great quality. I would say that Inglot black was really nice. It would work totally for a daily black. You can get a pretty good deep black out of it. I liked it a lot. It lasted, I'm trying to remember approximately how long it was before it started to kind of dissipate, because some of these just kind of disintegrated, like the Maybelline disintegrated. I was like, what happened to my eyeshadow? It's gone. And I would check my eyeshadow here and there along the day, even though the wear test went like 9 to 10 hours. Those are long ass wear tests for eyeshadows. But the Inglot did relatively well. It lasted pretty well. And I would recommend Inglot in general, especially if you like a customizable palette. I've had like pearlescent colors, matte colors. I'm not a big fan of glitter colors, especially older glitter colors, which are just a little bit of glitter. Little bit of glitter in an eyeshadow. I mean, not as good, but pretty much their mattes are out of this world. Really, really good quality. And at $6, I would say you can't really go wrong with Inglot. Is it the best on my list? No. But it's absolutely worth $6. It's a good eyeshadow. Now here's a nice one that is, these are less expensive than they were when I first bought them, which makes me wonder if they're still independent. I think they are. And that is Luxie. And this was a good, deep, dark black. Its staying power was not quite there for me. That 6 hours it started to disintegrate. But it gave a rich velvety black, and it's independent owned, and it's BIPOC owned. So if it still is, but their eyeshadow is a little less expensive than it was when I bought that. I would say Luxie is comparable to Anastasia, which yes, I did test that one. I was like, wait, what am I doing here? All right, here's another goth brand. Requisite goth brands are, to me, Stargazer and Manic Panic. These are our old school stuff that was there for us back in the day, so let's still support them. The Manic Panic was decent. It was $6.95, so it was $7 for one color. It was pretty good. It was not quite as nice as Luxie or Inglot, but it was better than L'Oreal or Maybelline. So was that $6.95? Not bad. Now the last time I checked, and I did have disqualifiers for some things. If it was limited edition, it was gone. If it had stopped being made, it was gone. Manic Panic does still have black, but it was in a palette at the time. I can't imagine that they would completely discontinue black, but you never know. So I thought that the quality was pretty good. It lasted pretty well. It didn't go on as black as some of the other ones, but it did last. So, I mean, if you're going to wear that to a club, then I'd put it on right before the club. I wouldn't like go to a club at the end of a really long day. You're not going to have any eyeshadow left or refresh it, but I thought it did pretty well. All right, here's Miss Fame. Miss Fame is a small indie drag queen owned company. And I got that at, I think, Camera Ready Cosmetics, which is in Dallas. It's pretty cool. It's close to me. I'm north of Dallas. And those are $7 a piece. Miss Fame. Pretty good. I would have high expectations from anything made by a drag queen, quite honestly, because they generally need some pretty high performance. That one was comparable. It was edged out by Luxie. Luxie's just a really good black eyeshadow. Had a little bit of fallout. Miss Fame had maybe a little bit less fallout than Luxie. I realized I haven't been talking about fallout. Every one of the shadows we've talked about so far has had fallout. Fallout is where you have some shadow fall down here while you're putting it on. And with black, if you try to touch it up, you're going to give yourself raccoon eyes. And you're going to be like, oh, look at me. I have more eyeshadow under my damn eyes than I have on top of it. So all of these have fallout. There were only a couple that had little to no fallout. And it's shocking to me when black doesn't have fallout. It almost always does. So these all had fallout in varying amounts. And I'd say Luxie had some of the most fallout, but it was also the deepest black, and that was kind of consistent. All right. So now, okay, so my qualifications were lesser expensive was under $8. I said 10 earlier. That might be more true today than it was when I first priced these all out. But $8 and up, I considered mid-range, getting into luxury. For me, things that you can buy in either a grocery store, a drugstore, or are relatively inexpensive, the low end that you can buy at Ulta in the US or department stores, when they're less expensive, that is what I call lower end. And that ranges from the $1.29 Wet n Wild. I was going to say Walmart, but I don't shop at Walmart. $1.29 Wet n Wild all the way up through the $7 Miss Fame. $8 is my cutoff. This is where we're getting into mid-range. So an eyeshadow that costs $8 up to under about 8 to 15 is what I consider mid-range for a single shadow. And then at 16 and up, well, 8 to 20, actually, or 8 to 18, 19. I'm trying to think of where Urban Decay is, because Urban Decay is one of those eyeshadows, and it's in here. I think those are 19, maybe 20. So I guess 8 to 20 is what I think of as mid-range. And when you get up into 25, 29, and 100 and something dollar palettes, that to me is luxury. Like all makeup is luxury, because you don't have to have it to survive. It's not part of shelter, food, and water, but you get what I'm saying. So Sephora is low-end luxury in that kind of a definition. And $8 a pop. And I have to say, do not discount the Sephora brand. I want to say that's the same lab that makes Kat Von D, which is now KVD, which I don't buy for multiple reasons. Love what she did for the Latin community, but otherwise there's a lot of problematic stuff with Kat Von D. Anyway, Sephora is a really good, deep, rich black. And I just realized how I did this was very draconian about it. Just went up in price for what it took to buy the thing that I used with the eyeshadow. So it lasted really well. At $8, you're in a good price range. It has packaging almost exactly like NYX, but it's much higher quality than NYX. So this is comparable lasting power to Luxie, but with a little bit less fallout. I would say its lasting power is actually comparable to Anastasia, which is coming up, but Sephora has less fallout. So the fallout's kind of mid-range. Okay, so next we have, this is a lower end, which is Sleek. Sleek Cosmetics, and this one is at this spot in the lineup because I had to buy a $10 palette to get a little black Sleek eyeshadow. But I wanted to have enough inexpensive brands because I don't really think that you need to go broke on your makeup if you don't want to. If you just want to look nice and you're not collecting and it's not a huge thing to you, then I don't see any reason for you to be spending $29 on a single black eyeshadow. Anyway, Sleek was decent. It was approximately the same as L'Oreal, so it wasn't too bad on the fallout, but it did take some building up to get a good black out of it, and it was never going to be that super dark, rich, velvety black that is what I personally look for. There were quite a few on here that had that velvety look, but the Sleek is definitely a lower end, and if you buy the Vintage Romance, it has a lot of colors in it, and some of those colors in there were actually, I thought, a little bit better quality than the black. There was a really nice purple. So it'd be worth the $10 for everything that you get if you're going to use it all. But if you're just buying it for the black, then I would go with the less expensive. It's probably it's a little bit nicer than Wet n Wild. Wet n Wild being nicer than Maybelline and at least comparable with L'Oreal. L'Oreal generally, I know that they're kind of lying shithead of a company frequently, but L'Oreal for the price point has a little bit higher quality. I'll say frequently. Oh boy, we're doing a big price jump. Okay, so there, after 8, there is a big price jump. 8, that's why 8 is what I called 8 and below is lower end. Of course, there's obviously a range between $1.29 eyeshadow and $8 eyeshadow. There's a big price difference. But then all of a sudden they popped up. I didn't really see much that was like 9, 10, 11. We're now at 12, blam, with Cosette. One of the best eyeshadow brands that I have ever used is Cosette. You're going to have a little bit of fallout. It'll be, I mean, there's a little bit of fallout. It's less than most of the other blacks I used. It's $12 a pop. This is a brand out of, I believe, Canada. It is an independent. It is aimed at theatrical makeup artists and, well, I mean, people who work in theater and theatrical arts. And their eyeshadows are outstanding. They last and last and last. So if you're needing an eyeshadow that's going to last you for 12 hours, this Cosette is going to do that for you. The painful part is that it's not available everywhere. It is a bit expensive if you're on a budget, and you may have to wait. You may not be able to get it in your country, and that is a pain in the ass and makes me crazy. If you can get Cosette, whatever color, I've got 4. I've got a red, really great red, a bright ass green, like a leaf green, and then, oh, a Happy Saturday Phantom Maniperv. Oh my god, I can't say it. I just can't say it. We'll go with that. Anyway, so Cosette, highly recommended brand. One of my favorite eyeshadow brands. I've probably tried 50 or 60 eyeshadow brands at this point. All right, here's my standard black next to my Sugar Pill. I have 2, Sugar Pill and Makeup Forever. Makeup Forever is lower on the fallout. I just realized how low my cards are showing. Makeup Forever is pretty low on the fallout. It is $17 a pop, so it is not cheap. But it does last pretty well all day. It doesn't get as black as the blackest eyeshadows I tried. You know, like, what is that? Vanta Black. I wish they'd make a Vanta Black, but the guy who owns Vanta Black is kind of a douche, so I don't want to use that. But something similar. So Makeup Forever is, they do have theatrical line. They're one of those weird kind of sits on the fence. Are we theatrical? Are we not? They make one of my favorite foundations. But their eyeshadows are usually pretty good. I've tried like 6 or 7 different colors of Makeup Forever. I'd say actually the black is the best. It's a good quality black. It's my daily black. It goes on easy. It does have some fallout. Not too bad. Not too bad. It'll get pretty darn black. It doesn't get to that quite velvety rich black. But for a daily black, It goes on easy. It blends beautifully. It lasts for a long time. It'll last a good 9 hours. It's not one that necessarily will go to 12, but it's definitely a high quality eyeshadow. Right, Vanta Black, if it's in a dark room, you can't even see it. But that guy wants everybody to pay copyright and charges a lot of money and had some kind of lawsuit, I forget, so that somebody else could not use that black. Like two people developed it together or something. He's kind of a douche. So then somebody else, I forget, did a pink. It's like this big drama in the art world, and it's hilarious to me. I love it. Okay, moving right along. I'm trying to get this in an hour, y'all. Generally I fail at that, but I'm trying not to go 5 hours because it's me. Phantomani Perv, we did Sugar Pill first. It's the control I did. Everything is compared to Sugar Pill because Sugar Pill is what I consider, it would be the first black eyeshadow and the first red eyeshadow that I would recommend to most people. Which it's funny, if you hated Sugar Pill, that's interesting because I hate Urban Decay. I did it anyway, but Urban Decay turns into one color on me. I can use 12 colors and it will turn into one color no matter what. It's the only eyeshadow company that does that to me. But moving on to the next of these is Illamasqua. And Illamasqua is, I kind of wonder if they're no longer an indie brand because they've broken into the worldwide market. It used to be hard to get this brand. You had to wait and it would just be order a bunch of shit because you're not going to be able to do it later because shipping was monumentally expensive, etc. because it was from overseas for me because I'm in the US. Illamasqua Black is a finer grind. There's a couple of eyeshadows just on the market in general that are really, really. Oh, Phantom Mani Perp, that is the same thing I have with Urban Decay. Same thing. And I didn't have as much problem with black as I have with some other colors. I have that same problem with only some colors of it starts with a V. I want to say Ville Noir, but that's, oh my god, we're coming up to Urban Decay. Anyway, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. So Illamasqua was pretty good. It didn't get to the blackety black. Like I said, I would love to have Vanta Black eyes. That'd be so freaky. But it didn't get to that velvety inky black, but it did not have too much fallout. And Illamasqua is generally a pretty good brand, but they have a very fine grind on their eyeshadow, so it might tend to go on what feels like really thin. It does better when you build it up in layers. I have to say they have a red that's called, I think, Demonic. That is a really nice red eyeshadow. And I also had a bright, like, spring lime green, which those are black, lime green, red. Those are 3 matte eyeshadows I always want to have. And then gold, so I could make my entire eye wardrobe out of that. I don't because I like a lot. But Illamasqua I thought was pretty good. It lasted pretty well. It started to fall apart at like 7 to 8 hours, which is not bad. That's a long time to wear your eyeshadow, especially just kind of going around in your day, you know. Okay, next we have Urban Decay, which we were talking about Sugar Pill, and Sugar Pill lasts pretty well for me. It's not my absolute best, but when nobody else is making black eyeshadow, Sugar Pill is always making black eyeshadow. The same with red. When red's not popular, Sugar Pill's always making it. So here we have Urban Decay. And Urban Decay is a brand that I had tried 3 different naked palettes, 2 other full-size palettes, and now 3 single eyeshadows. I had a brown of theirs when I was doing like that method where you do the white and then your medium brown and then your white again, so you can just build your shadow, your contour underneath on your eyes, and then just do whatever you want to on top of it, and it always looks good. So that Buck Shadow at like 10 years old was still fantastic. I just threw it out because I wasn't using it anymore, or just because I had so many other shadows and I needed to reduce. I just had too much shit and it was old. But it was an absolute outstanding shadow, and it is the only Urban Decay that has ever worked for me. So I put this in. It's 20 bucks a pop. Urban Decay is expensive per gram. Per gram, they're one of the more expensive out there. just across the board. And it was okay, but it's like all of a sudden it went on my eyes. The fact that I got it to last even a couple hours means that it's probably a pretty great brand for most people. But like Phantom, I gotta look at your name every time. Phantom Mani Perv. Phantom Man. Anaperv? Phantom Anaperv? I might get it right. I don't know. I feel like I'm slaughtering that ID. But Urban Decay for me is not, I tested it, but I wouldn't really trust my test. If Urban Decay works well for you, the black will work. Okay, I'll just say Phantom. Thank you. The black will work like gangbusters. The fact that Urban Decay, like I had the Fire palette, the Rose palette, one of the other like 3 different naked palettes. They all would make one color. You know, I don't know if you know this about Urban Decay, but when you see the naked palettes, you're like, how did they decide what color? That's the color of all the eyeshadow combined together. And that is the only color I will get out of that palette, no matter what the hell I do. If I use 2 colors, it's going to be 1 color. So Urban Decay, I tested it. The fallout was not bad at all, actually. It's pretty good. It went on pretty dark. For me, it just kind of disintegrated much more quickly. Oh, Juvia's Place. You know, I don't know if I have Juvia. I didn't put Juvia's Place in here because Juvia's Place eyeshadow is another one that just doesn't work for me. The eyeshadow at Juvia's Place that works for me is the blush. That bright ass pink blush, because I bought the darker blush palette, is amazing eyeshadow for me. But their eyeshadows, nothing sticks to my face. And I really wanted to have Juvia's Place in here, and I had Juvia's Place, but it just doesn't work for me. And I don't know why I insist on putting that Urban Decay. Probably because I opened it to do the video. But yeah, I would recommend Juvia's Place. For me, unfortunately, whatever my body chemistry is that hates Urban Decay also hates Juvia's Place. Like, I'll get more of it. I don't know if you guys have this, but ever have this when you're wearing eyeshadow, whatever color, where you start and it's all up here where it's supposed to be. And at the end of the day, you're like, why is so much of my eyeshadow down here when I didn't rub my eyes all day? What's going on, man? That's crazy. That's Juvia's Place for me. It would just migrate down my face. Still, I should have added it into the test, but for some reason I didn't. Like, I don't remember if I couldn't get the black. I can't remember why. It's been long enough, but yeah, it's one that really belonged in this test. But again, there are some failings here. So we might be, nope, we're not even at the end of the single eyeshadow. So far you've only seen 1 in a palette. This is how expensive these fucking eyeshadows get. So this is Surat. Surat is a higher end brand. They're run about 22 bucks a piece. And this is where I would say that we are getting into luxury brands at over 20 bucks a pop. You're getting into the real realm of luxury brands, because when you look at Surat, their eyeshadows are $22 a piece. If you see a palette with 4 or 5 eyeshadows, it's going to be $100. They only have 1 or 2. It might be a face palette. I forget where I've seen that. You have to buy the palette separately. You have to buy it all separately. And it's made like luxury makeup is made frequently to go on easy and look good easily. When you have eyeshadow that's made to go on easily, it's not necessarily made to go on dark. It's not always made for that color payoff. It's made so you can look really great really fast. And I found that to be pretty consistent. Surat is one of those. I was able to get a pretty good color and it did last. Once I get a deep color with Surat, because I just have 2 because they're 22 bucks a pop. I have a dark purple and I have this black. Once I get it to the color I want it at, it lasts pretty well and it looks pretty nice. Very low fallout. That's actually a pretty nice shadow, but you are going to have to work to get it dark. And it'll get black. People will know you're wearing black eyeshadow. You'll know you're wearing black eyeshadow, but you're not going to get like the blackest black. And it's going to be a super dark gray bordering on black. It's going to look nice. Luxury eyeshadows frequently have skincare elements in them to keep your eyelids from looking all crepey and old, because they're frequently purchased by older people. But it looked good. It had low fallout, but you're not going to get that really deep color. Now here's one. You are going to get a really deep color. Laura Mercier. This is 25 bucks. It had a little bit more fallout than I expected it to have. But this is, can you even read that? Well, I can read it because I'm in the room with it and I have no glare. I'm in totally natural light from the side. You should be able to tell that. Anyway, Laura Mercier is a higher end brand, generally known for a translucent powder, a fantastic translucent powder. I found the eyeshadow to be pretty much excellent. It was really, really great. It's $25 for a single eyeshadow, which I think is pretty damn expensive, but it's very, very good. If you want a good, deep, rich black, Laura Mercier is not going to let you down. Let's see. I probably bought it at Sephora. I don't remember where I got that one. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's 25 bucks a pop. I went and looked it up on the Laura Mercier site. So I would recommend it. Again, though, it's expensive as hell. I have to say that when those deep blacks in the lesser priced eyeshadows, you're going to deal with more fallout. Laura Mercier did have fallout, but it lasted beautifully, and it was pretty easy to get it on. I'm trying to remember because one of the higher end ones was not so easy to get it on. Let's get it on. Let's see. Oh, your best eyeshadow is a 35 color Morphe palette. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You don't know where the best eyeshadow is going to come from. But the darkest, you may have to deal with fallout before you get it on, but usually when you deal with fallout, most of the eyeshadows didn't. That's the thing that Maybelline did. It migrated down my face. So I had some in here still, but I had a lot down in here. And when it migrates down this way on your face, and today I have to say I slapped it on. I slapped on, I think I did use Makeup Forever today. But when it migrates down your face and you haven't been rubbing your eyes or crying or anything, that to me says not worth the money. I don't care if it's $2. I do not care. Okay. All right. So, oh, I'm out of order. Okay, y'all. I'm so sorry. I do have one that's out of order. So, all right. We'll do this one first. Okay, here's one. This is an indie brand that went national through Target. Reina Rebelde. Rebel Queen. They're based in Dallas. They are Latin owned. And at the time that I bought this, they were still indie. They were still, you had to keep going back to the site in case they had everything sold out. This was a $20 palette. It had 4 colors in it. And I want to say it had a silver, a whitish, a tawny brown, and this black. And the black was quite nice. For 20 bucks, I thought the little 4-color quad was a pretty well-made eyeshadow, and I was happy to buy something from anyone BIPOC. I mean, I'm always happy to buy from BIPOC. I mean, we've given enough money to everybody else, right? Let's even it out. But I thought that this was pretty good. It did have some fallout, but it was blackety black. It was nice and black, and that is the number one thing I'm looking for. I want it to be dark black, and I want it to stay on because I can clean out from under my eyes, and I'm honestly, unless I'm in a super rush, I don't mind doing it. And that's why I still have multiple black eyeshadows, because some don't require any of that. They just go on, and some require cleanup underneath. But Reina Rebelde makes also, they have these lipstick like pencil looking crayons. One of my favorite brands of lipstick is this brand, and you can get them in Target. They have kind of a tattoo motif look. But I am actually pretty impressed with this brand. Every time I go back looking for the eyeliner, it's sold out. That is a pretty good sign. And certain colors of lipstick will be sold out. So they seem to be relatively popular with the people that support them at their site. But they did go national through Target. So they didn't go national, they went national. Okay, so this, nope, we're not even to the last of the individual eyeshadows yet. Y'all, it's a lot. It's a shitload of eyeshadows. Okay, so Pat McGrath Labs, the single. And I do have some notes about Pat McGrath, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about these eyeshadows on a video. This live stream will be saved for a video later. And that's Pat McGrath Labs. The single eyeshadow is much smaller than what's on the Mothership. The Mothership palette is how I originally tried the black. It has very, very low fallout. Well, let's talk about this one first. Okay, so this is the single. It's a 2-gram eyeshadow, 25 bucks. Pat McGrath is going to be quality. It is black. It is nice and dark black. It does have fallout. And I'd say it looks pretty good up until like 8.5 hours or so. So that's pretty good lasting. However, the black I had in the mothership palette that I had, one of the motherships, I got rid of it because that black was the only shadow I used. The black and the weird gold. I had the mothership with that really amazing green in it. The thing I don't like about Pat McGrath is there's always a topper shadow, and I'm like, ugh, I don't want a topper shadow. Put something useful there. But that was one of the best black eyeshadows I have ever used, and it was in a palette. And I just didn't want to double Pat McGrath. I didn't want it to be in there twice. But Pat McGrath's mothership palettes are outstanding. They are fantastic quality. The one I didn't like was the topper, but it was a topper, and I tried to use it as a regular eyeshadow. It's not intended to be used as a regular eyeshadow. You will be sad if you use a topper eyeshadow as a regular. The other colors, I mean, they're outstanding. But again, 125 bucks to get that black eyeshadow is a lot of money. However, that is top 2 black eyeshadows I used out of all the black eyeshadows I've ever used, which I had 47, so it's probably 50. I probably tried at least 50 black eyeshadows. Pat McGrath in the mothership. The single is good, but I didn't see my Anastasia in there. How did these get out of order? I very scrupulously kept these in order. And yeah, the Uoma's out of Makeup Atelier. Okay, give me just a sec here, y'all. Oh, because it was in a palette. Okay, that's why. All right, but the Pat McGrath is comparable to the single eyeshadow, is like a step up from the Anastasia black single eyeshadow. Anastasia black single eyeshadow is actually quite good. And because I used one in a palette, because I thought that was more likely what people would actually have or be considering, I used the palette instead of the single. So the Pat McGrath single is good. The Pat McGrath in the mothership, superior. A very superior shadow. If you're considering the investment of Pat McGrath, be really careful, because at that price, make sure you like all the eyeshadows, because I was using 3 out of $125 fucking palette, which I'm sure, knowing me, I bought it at 20% off at Sephora because I am a cheap ass about a lot of stuff. All right, here's a brand that's pretty exciting. Their palettes, I love the way they put their color stories together, and that is Uoma. And Uoma is BIPOC Black owned. And they did a Coming to America. I used the Black Magic, which was the little guy. I think it was was it Coming to America? Black Panther. I forget. It was based on whatever. Uoma Black is pretty good. It didn't quite have the staying power. I mean, like I said, this is a whole palette that's $29. It wasn't $29 for the eyeshadow. And I have to say that the purple was actually the outstanding color in that palette, which is saying something, because purple is a bitch. So Uoma Black was pretty good. I couldn't quite get it to the dark black, and it did not have quite the lasting power. If you're looking at something, you're like, well, I need a black shadow, but I want to get some other stuff too, I would recommend this palette. It's $29 if the black eyeshadow is more of a highlighting color, because I put black in my crease a lot, because I guess my daily makeup when I go to work looks like other people's cocktail party makeup, whatever. I thought it was pretty good, serviceable, but I would not definitely buy this palette just for that black eyeshadow. You can get a better black eyeshadow for a lot less money. I just thought the palette itself had a great color story. It was really nice. It's BIPOC owned, it's black owned, so I am fully in support, and I really like that brand. I think they're really nice. All right, here's one that I was like, let's see what this does, and I was like, ah ha 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 ha. Natasha Denona. What is it called? Oh, Blackest Black. It's the single black eyeshadow. It is the most expensive single shadow I have on this list, because there's a couple I couldn't get in singles. Disappointing. Could not get it on black. It took a dark black. It was gray bordering on black. It disintegrated fast. I mean, it disintegrated, did not have the lasting power. And this is interesting because I have found Natasha Denona to be of varying quality. Like, the first time I used, the first palette I had was the Lila. So, you know, I made an investment in the purple. I call it the purple palette. And I have more notes on Natasha Denona because that palette did not stay in good shape. It would have needed me to add alcohol to it and repress it at 5 years old, which is not a new palette. I mean, that's old for makeup, but that black eyeshadow itself as the single eyeshadow was 29 bucks. The packaging was thick, like lucite feeling, really nice packaging, but that's not worth it. It was also fine ground like Illamasqua, but the Illamasqua was better. So in comparison, you could compare it to Illamasqua for the texture and the feel of it, but Illamasqua was definitely better than the Natasha Denona. I do not, absolutely do not recommend Natasha Denona. I would buy the Maybelline first, and Maybelline I didn't like that much. It made my eyes itch. So absolutely no, it's not worth it. Not worth it. Which is really sad because when Natasha Denona makes an eyeshadow that's good, it's really good. Not as good as Pat McGrath. There's only one brand out there that I think that is absolutely every bit as good as Pat McGrath, and we'll get to that one because it's not in this price range. So, well, we're getting close. I think I'm over half done at this point. It was a lot, y'all. It was a shitload. That's why I said the live stream is going to be like at least an hour just to talk about the analysis here because I have a lot to say about these eyeshadows. It was a lot of fucking work and there was quite a bit of variance on some of them. Surprising. All right, so I had wanted to try this one, and I would not recommend this palette itself. I don't think I'd recommend the eyeshadow either. It was just dark gray, and that is Shiseido. They're a great brand for other stuff. Their skincare is really nice. I've had good luck with Shiseido and in other stuff, and this is Essential Eye. The palette had 4 colors. It had a cobalt blue, which was lovely. I'd say that's the best shadow in the palette, but I was testing black, not the cobalt blue. The black went on gray. It had a lot of fallout, and it kind of disintegrated, so it was not of that quality. However, it should be noted that a lot of time with East Asian brands, and I mean specifically South Korean or Japanese, their eyeshadow's not necessarily made to go on thick and dark. It's a highlight. Their color palettes are frequently extremely limited, and they just don't go on as deep and rich as a lot of colors that we are used to, especially when you go to some of that higher end stuff that you're expecting a huge color payoff. The makeup style is very different, and you have to take that into consideration if you're going to buy a brand that is, I mean, what we can get here in the US is usually going to be South Korean or Japanese, but remember to take that into consideration if you're testing those or if you're buying those colors. It's hard to find black eyeshadow at all in those brands. I couldn't find a South Korean one that had an actual black. You can get gorgeous minky gray, one of my favorite colors, but you can't get black. You can get like the entire range of pink and coral and I think kind of, no, not plum, brown. You can definitely get brown. Just the style of makeup is just so different from what we do. I think you'd have to go with in Japanese, you might have, for that black, you might have to go with geisha makeup, and you were in a whole different realm. You were then in theatrical makeup, and yeah, there's probably a learning curve on that one. All right, so next we have MAC. I think this was a semi-sweet palette. It's one of those little bitty 9-color palettes that are about that big. MAC is generally a pretty decent brand for me. I'd say it's serviceable to good. I was able to get a black, and it didn't have a huge amount of fallout, but it did kind of wear off. And the wear off point, I think, was getting to be like 7 hours. I already had like Sephora outperformed it. The Wet n Wild was really close to how long it lasted. The MAC was darker than the Wet n Wild, but the Wet n Wild's $1.29. So again, there's always something you got to take into consideration. I feel like if you got an individual MAC, you might get a different quality because a lot, and I mean a lot of makeup companies, your individual shadows are where you're going to get your highest quality. You're not going to get your highest quality in your palettes. MAC generally is pretty consistent quality. They are, well, when I was younger, they were aimed at drag queens and they used to give money to AIDS research when they were first founded. So I'll always remember that and always think fondly of MAC. First makeup brushes I used that were great. This palette was wonderful. It was a wonderful little neutrals palette. I liked it a lot, but I wouldn't buy it for the black. If you just need a neutrals palette and you just wear some black eyeshadow, you're not trying to like paint your eyes shut like I am, then I think it would be fantastic because it had a lovely maroon, a nice little mustard. Trying to get good deep colors. And it still has matte qualities. So you're going to have a little bit of fallout, but you're going to have decent staying power and it's going to get pretty black. So it's a decent recommendation, but again, we are only testing the black eyeshadows here. So in the basis of black eyeshadows, not so much. In the basis of a dark neutrals palette, it's great. All right. And here we have another one. I don't even know if you can read this. Dark red. Ace Beauty, which is another BIPOC, black owned. Well, BIPOC is everybody, but black owned company. Still indie. They do, was this the Paradise? Yeah, Paradise Fallen palette, which is a purple palette. Super exciting to get a test palette that had all that purple in it because, you know, if you test purple eyeshadows, you know that they can be vastly varying quality. I found the black to be, it did have some fallout and it was pretty black and it lasted pretty well. I think Ace Beauty overall, their quality is pretty good. They still have that kind of indie feel to them. They're much grown since I first got that palette. And that palette is still in great shape 2 years later. No sign of degradation whatsoever. And I felt like the black was pretty good. It wasn't the blackety black that I want, that velvety inky dark black, but it was pretty good and it lasted pretty long. I think it was like 8 hours. You were pretty good for 8 hours. I would recommend that palette because it's fucking gorgeous. So the black was good quality, well above medium quality. I think it's a good purchase all around. At $35, you're getting like 10 shadows. It's wonderful, and the black does last pretty well. You could maybe try different, I was going to say concealer. Well, some people just use concealer as their eye primer. Eye primers. So, yeah, I would recommend that. That's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, Kat D says, have you seen the Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette? I've seen that palette and I thought about buying it because once there was huge controversy over that thing, I realized that the way they were saying, well, you just need to use this correctly. I was like, oh, bitch, that is wrong. You should not be mass marketing an eyeshadow palette that has a specific use type. But I do my eyeshadow like they do on that palette. So I'm like, oh, okay, that palette would probably work great for me. When I first saw it, I thought it was ugly, but I do periodically visit it. I've considered buying it. Let's see. Oh, yeah, absolutely love 5 of the colors. The plum, dark green. Yes, yeah, a lot of fallout. That's the problem with some of Anastasia's eyeshadows. They're beautiful, but fallout everywhere. And here is, I'm not sure where this one is from, but they are an indie brand, and that is Makeup Atelier or Atelier. I'm not sure how they pronounce it because I can't remember if they're actually from France. And this was a little 5 shadow palette. This brand is fantastic. $35, 5 shadows. I did not love all the colors on me, so I got rid of this palette. But I would absolutely buy a Makeup Atelier. The eyeshadow was deep, rich black, relatively low fallout, and it lasted all day. 35 bucks, you're getting 5 eyeshadows. This is actually was $35 divided by $7 a shadow, if you think of it that way. I think of it as how much is it going to cost me to get the thing I want, and for me that was 35 bucks to get that palette. I thought it was really, really great. And I bought the one that had orange. They had two. There was like the grayscale one, and then the one with the oranges. And because I'm like, yay, orange eyeshadow, woohoo! I love it. That orange eyeshadow looks like key wrap on me. But the black, fantastic. You can't really ask for much more than relatively low. There was some fallout, was not too bad. Relatively low fallout. It went on pretty easy. It was a deep, rich black, and it lasted. It was fantastic. I would say the quality similar to it is Cosette. Remember that Cosette I talked about in the beginning? That, like I said, Cosette is one of the finest eyeshadow brands I've ever used. And I would say the same thing about Makeup Atelier. They're not as expensive as the absolute best I've used, and you can get, you don't have to commit to like a 15 color palette or a 30 color palette or 10 gargantuan eyeshadows like Pat McGrath. Although if you can afford a mothership palette and they have one that has enough colors you'd use, I would recommend it. And now we get to Anastasia. I keep comparing stuff to Anastasia because Anastasia is the first black eyeshadow I ever bought that I could make black. And I had a single of it. It just got old and the pan rusted. I mean, it just got really old. I'd had it for like 10 years. And it was dark, dark, dark black. But Anastasia is known for fallout. That unfortunately powdery cat fallout. So you got to be careful putting it on. It is going to last. Once you get it on there, your eyes are going to be black and you are going to be a mess when you take it off. It is fantastic. I highly rate Anastasia eyeshadow for everything except the fallout. They have beautiful color stories, good rich colors. Your payoff is outstanding, but you're going to be wearing it underneath your eyes. So if you have the ability to put your cover up on after your eyeshadow, then Anastasia is fantastic. This is from the Sultry palette, which I never thought I would like, but it is one of my favorite palettes. And that's interesting, but I think that's because the shimmers in there or the metallics, whatever they are also just as good as the black. All the colors are fantastic. But Fallout City, holy shit, so much fallout. So much fallout. All right, we're coming up to another disappointing one, and that is Viseart. Viseart is a higher end, I believe they are French. Are they French or French Canadian? I forget. They are an indie brand. They do these huge edit palettes. They are higher end, 6 shadows. This was 6 shadows, 45 bucks. I'm trying to remember because the white was also crappy, but the black was very disappointing. Very disappointing. I had a hard time getting it black, which is interesting because Viseart, of all, when I went through and took apart a bunch of my palettes, I pulled out a shitload of my Viseart. I had all the little miniature ones, and they're all magnetic, so they're all in another palette sitting there. Wonderful, but the black just sucked. It sucked, and I put it on, put it on, and I'm looking at it, and I just could not. I never felt like I could get it dark, and I didn't feel like it was staying on. I just was very disappointed by the Viseart black. If you're going to use it as a crease color to darken your other shadows, okay, but there's, I mean, I would choose the Wet n Wild over this if there was no cost analysis. If they cost the same exact amount of money, I'd buy the Wet n Wild first. And I'd buy the Stargazer and the Manic Pie. I'd buy everything except the Natasha Denona before this Viseart because I was so shocking. It was shocking because their eyeshadow is so great. And this was not. So Viseart, I highly recommend everything else I've ever tried of theirs. I mean, but that black, P.U. And the white. The white was like, I like scraped my finger and I was like, man, there's barely even anything on there. I'm not a fan of white eyeshadow. I don't really use it, but you know, I wanted to try it because I spent 45 bucks on this little palette. So yeah, it sucked. It sucked. Okay. Another indie brand that is aimed at goths and I'll say witchy people is, what are these called? Black Moon. God, I can't believe I can't remember that. Black Moon Cosmetics, and I had that half moon shape called Orb of Light. It was a really good black. I would have to say their color payoff is lovely. I love the color story. A lot of fallout on that one. It doesn't last quite as long as Anastasia. It has at least as much fallout as Anastasia. I had 3 brands that had serious fallout, and the Orb of Light had serious fallout. They had one of my favorite colors in that, which is I think they called it wolf or werewolf or something like that. So it's a brownish gray, really great mid color when you're going for cool tones. And it stayed on pretty well. Pretty well. Not quite as well as Anastasia does. Pretty well. And supporting an indie company, of course, that's very important in the days of corporate corruption. But there was a shitload of fallout. Just a shitload. And it was, to me, it was weird because the light color was huge. I get where they were going with this because the light colors you wind up running out of. But you know what? Every palette comes with the light colors. And when you buy a palette for the other colors, you don't use those light colors. So most of us have enough light colors. It's like the couple years where every single palette ever made came with a black. Everybody has enough black for 10 years. Apparently not me because I'm going to keep buying it. All right. So here's one I was very excited to try. And this is Kevyn Aucoin. Kevyn Aucoin, last I heard, was an indie brand. Kevyn Aucoin himself is dead, long since dead. But he was the well-lit face, how you see the Kardashians and they're doing all that shit around the edges and people contouring their nose. That was developed by Kevyn Aucoin. Quite the talented young man. And so I tried it with this little 5-color, the purple version, so the black color was a purpley black, and it's really nice. It doesn't get as black as some of the other ones. It gets black. It gets black. It doesn't get inky dark black, but it is really good quality. It goes on pretty well. You're going to have to build it up because, again, this is a luxury brand, and it's a luxury brand that is made to go on easy. But it comes with 5 colors, different purples, kind of mauve purples, a grayish purple, really nice little palette. The black I thought was really nice. It was definitely worth buying. High quality. Would I buy it again? I don't have to. But yeah, I like Kevyn Aucoin quite a bit. Really good quality. Everything I've used blush, face powder, eyeshadow, something else. Oh, highlighters by Kevyn Aucoin. All are really nice quality. Ooh, look, it's getting dark. It's getting dark in my room. It's not dark outside yet. It's just the sun is not on my windows much. I guess we're okay. We're okay. We're almost done. Okay. Next we have Marc Jacobs. And I got one of those little palettes that has, I think, 7 colors, the little oval shaped ones. I'd been wanting to try them for years. I'm like a little toad sitting there waiting for it to go on sale. And this one had a glittery pink in it. Unfortunately, I dropped the palette not long before I tested it. So this did not go too heavy on the fallout, except that I dropped it. And when you drop something, it doesn't, the composite that holds it together, it's not pressed as tight. It goes on pretty easy. It has a really good payoff and it lasts a long time. I am very impressed with Marc Jacobs eyeshadow. I was resistant for some of the higher end luxury brands. I've been pretty resistant because I'm like, that's really a ripoff. I don't need that. No, you don't. You can get a lot of this payoff in smaller size indie companies for a lot less money. Sometimes to get those things, though, you have to make an order. And if you're going to order one eyeshadow that's $8, you're going to pay $8 shipping because that's their standard rate of $8 across the board. So you wind up having to buy a bunch of other stuff, and it's a pain in the ass to get the indie. And I think Marc Jacobs is still indie. I don't know what lab it comes from. But I'm sorry, the palette was called Electric. And they may not make it anymore, but Marc Jacobs does usually have something with the black. And the quality is very good. Very high quality. Worth the money, as expensive as it is. I'm checking to see. Okay. I'm checking to make sure my live stream's still running for a second there. So, yeah, it was really good. It had a little bit of fallout. Not bad. It was pretty easy to get on. Went on dark. Stayed on. It lasted pretty well. I would say it didn't really start to disintegrate until 8 hours. That's a really long time. All right, so next we have NARS. And NARS was really a little too cheeky when somebody said, hey, you're selling in China, you have to animal test. I don't know if you know about animal testing in China. They require it on some things, but it's not going to be on everything that's sold there. It's only on very specific things. However, NARS was like, well, we want to share artistry around the world. I was like, oh my God, just be honest and say we want to make money because China's the second largest economy in the world. Just be honest, you fucks. Anyway, their eyeshadow is fantastic. I have loved NARS for years. And this was a 12 color palette. I think the palette was this big. And I thought the black was pretty good. It didn't go on as easy as some of the other ones. It did not have a huge amount of fallout. It's just, I mean, it was good, but it wasn't one of those that's like, man, this palette's great. This black is out of this world. The palette was good because it's NARS. NARS quality has been for years. Every NARS product I've ever bought has been of good quality. I've never bought a NARS item, and I haven't bought a lot in the last few years because we're going to sell stuff in China because artistry. I'm like, fuck you. Anyway, that just left a bad taste in my mouth. But their quality is really excellent, from the lipstick to the blush. Well, the Orgasm blush I think is overrated, but lipstick to the blush to the eyeshadow. I've used the mascara, which is decent, but you know, we all have our favorite brands of mascara. Mine is Thrive Cosmetics, but pretty good. So this is good quality. It's going to go on relatively easy. You're going to have to pile it up to get that black because, again, it's luxury makeup made to go on well and easy for people who are willing to spend more money. It's supposed to make you look good rather quickly with minimal effort. So you're going to have to work a little bit more to get that dark black. Kind of like Surratt. I'd say Surratt quality is like, oh boy, they're real comparable. Real comparable. Surratt probably had a little bit less fallout. The NARS did not have a lot. But it's good. It's definitely good. And that's a really nice palette. It's just that I thought it was more rosy and it's actually more rusty, which is my only problem with the palette. It has nothing to do with the black. The black was perfectly fine. All right. Phew, home stretch, y'all. Wayne Goss. What was that called again? The Pearl Moonstone palette, which is the one that had the turquoise color and the peach. That peach was out of this world. It was very much a brow pearl. And this is luxury makeup, and the thing I fucking love about Wayne Goss, he himself, I think, is conservative. I don't remember. Somebody said sometime that I didn't think was harmful. But he uses older models. His main model for his eyeshadow is something like 70 years old. I mean, we're talking gray hair, gorgeous. And he uses those bold colors, and he's taken a lot of shit for that, y'all. So he aims his makeup, he likes to say it's pretty much for everybody, but he makes sure that he's age inclusive. He's just making this eyeshadow that goes on pretty easy. This palette's beautiful. It's beautiful. I thought the quality was wonderful. The darkness of the black, it's not as dark black. So for a luxury palette, I mean, it went on easy. It was nice. It was minimal fallout. There was a little bit, but it wasn't as dark as I wanted. Quality was beautiful. The palette itself is beautiful. But if you're looking for a super dark black, Wayne Goss black in this palette is not that black. I'm not saying it's not that black. It's not just dark gray. It does eventually get black, but you're going to have to work on it and just build it, build it, build it. You're going to feel like you're wearing this much eyeshadow by the time you get it black. Everything else is like, what a great eyeshadow. Wonderful quality. Wonderful quality. It's just not the darkest black. That's all. Okay, so here we have Melt Cosmetics, which is, I want to say, BIPOC. At least one of the owners is Latin. I can't remember if it's one or both. Anyway, they're still indie, and they're quite popular. And this is the Gemini palette, one of my favorite palettes. The color story is out of this world. It's got your mustards, your dark greens, etc. But boy, did they have fallout. That black is blackity black, black, black. I love it, I love it, I love it. But fallout. You are, with the Melt Cosmetics, in the palettes, they're going to have the fallout. If you get the stacks, and I don't think they even make the stacks anymore. That's unfortunate because those stacks quality was really fantastic. So with Melt Cosmetics, the Gemini palette, the green Gemini palette is wonderful quality. Their quality is not always up to par on every palette. I think I had the 420, one of the eyeshadows pretty much disintegrated. The glittery one disintegrated. It was not of the quality. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. It was hard to get on. But the black in the Gemini palette is a good solid dark, 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 dark black, but you are going to have fallout with Melt Cosmetics. Your color payoff, out of this world. Fallout can be out of this world. So just pay attention to what you're doing. Start light, build it up slowly. And remember, you're going to have to clean up underneath your eyes. Gorgeous palette. BIPOC, which we love to support, and still an indie brand, last I heard. They have one of my favorite blushes. They have the most perfect blush color. Also has a little bit of fallout. They just have fallout. They have a heavy, heavy color payoff. Ah, oh, damn it. Okay, y'all. Hang on. Let me make sure that these last few are... Oh, okay. These are... Oh, we're almost done. Oh my God, are we at the last two? Yes, we are on the last two, and I am out of order. So I apologize for that, because we have Real Her. Real Her, okay. And this one was $28. This company is really, I like Real Her as a company. They have names on all their cosmetics that are like True Beauty, crap, I'd have to look at it, but they're very uplifting kind of things. It was a gentleman who created a makeup company for his daughter when she was in high school. I mean, he didn't create it so she'd run it. He had her in mind when he created it, that he wanted to build confidence in young women. And he is a Chinese ethnicity American, or a Chinese fusion, of Chinese descent living in the U.S. And I thought it was, I wanted specifically to find somebody of Chinese descent or Chinese whatever in this, because I was doing this during the beginning in 2020, 2021, what the hell, 2021, in COVID, when people were demonizing Chinese people. I mean, your average Chinese person living in the U.S. probably did not cause COVID. I don't know if people realize that the average person on the street is not their government or whatever secret lab people think or any of that shit. So I put this in there because it was somebody of Chinese descent, and that was important to me at the time. And also, I'd had one of the palettes that I can't remember what it was. It's the purple-based one, and it was one of my daily wear palettes. I wore it all the time. The black went on. It was pretty dark. I could get a good black from it. It didn't have the lasting power. I don't think its aim is to kind of be that mid-range. It was $28 for the palette. And it's an indie brand, still an indie brand. They've introduced a lot more products since I had bought those palettes. I think it started to disintegrate, fall apart 6 to 7 hours. This is more of just a daily wear work makeup. You could wear it to a party or whatever. But for that really durable kind of, I mean, really, I'm looking for like runway level where you've got stage lights on, you're going to sweat to death and die. Interesting notes. I have some notes after the next. I only have one more after this, and it was the actual best, which oddly worked out. But yeah, Real Her is a great brand. I like it a lot. The black, it would not be high on my recommendations. There are other browns, neutrals, they're fine, but the black, it got black, it got pretty dark, but it did fall apart relatively quickly. Now remember, my relatively quickly is 6 hours. A lot of times if you watch makeup stuff on YouTube, they're only testing that eyeshadow for 2 to 5 hours. If they test it for 8 to 12 hours, wow. And some of this did last 8 to 12 hours. Pat McGrath lasts 8 to 12 hours. I've had Pat McGrath with the Mothership palette, with the black from there. I didn't use, what I keep wanting to call it, concealer, primer. I didn't have to use primer to get that black, and that is amazing. Okay, so the last one is Tom Ford. This mofo is expensive. It was $88 for 4 eyeshadows. It's a 4-color quad. It's the most expensive because Clé de Peau, which is also a really high-end luxury brand, did not have a black because I wanted to see how that one held up. The Tom Ford was possibly the best eyeshadow I've ever used, and I'm resistant because it's $88. Y'all, so fucking expensive. But my God, is this a great eyeshadow. It doesn't need the primer. It's just as good as Pat McGrath. I'd say that they're very comparable. Tom Ford ease of use and silky feel was slightly more than Pat McGrath. That's why I think it's just slightly higher quality. But this is absolutely easy, beautiful, incredibly expensive, but the best of the black eyeshadows I used was, in my opinion, for me, in my body chemistry, remember I can't use Urban Decay because it sucks for me, even though I tried it, is Tom Ford. And so I go and troll Tom Ford because I'm like, okay, let's come up with some colors that I will use every day, like bright corals or beautiful purples. And what's going on, Pi? I'm sorry, one of my dogs is over here acting like an idiot. I can't tell what's happening. Oh, it's dinner time. He's freaking out because it's dinner time. Okay, so yeah, Tom Ford. And it's just neutrals with a black. So it's got like kind of a silvery color, a good medium brown, the black, and I think like a lighter brown, whatever. Fantastic. Fan-fucking-tastic eyeshadow. I cannot believe how good that eyeshadow is. I was resistant because it is so expensive. $88 for 4 eyeshadows. Fuck off. But I bought it and I justified it by this video. And it is so good. It is so shockingly good. So, you know, I go and I look and see if there's another palette because I'm like, okay, yeah, these are going to last me. I'm going to use this until I pretty much am buried with it because it costs so much money. And I mean, if you're willing to spend luxury brand, because really that's $22 for an eyeshadow in a palette. $22 per eyeshadow. Holy crap, that is so expensive. But it was really good. So overall, in summation of the black eyeshadow, I had to eliminate a lot of things that were limited edition. I did have a Kat Von D. I had that, I call it the Cathedral palette. I've since given it away because I realized I wasn't really using it. It had a black in it, and I did not include it because it was limited edition. I had a Bobbi Brown. I went back to check the price. Turns out that that palette was limited edition. I used the NARS that I used. Last time I checked, you could still get it. The one I originally bought was one of those beautiful artistry ones. It's got like these pearl colored flowers. The background's black with a ribbon of red. Gorgeous. They did a few of those. I didn't use it because it's limited edition. So I had to eliminate 12 of the eyeshadows I had and either replace them with singles or just out because they were limited edition. So that is why some brands that you think that I would have tested are not in there. I mean, the Kat Von D I had was old before I discovered that she's got, we'll just call her problematic. And I can't remember the other ones that I just had to eliminate besides the Bobbi Brown. I may have had a ColourPop palette, or I can't remember now. There were a lot though. There were a bunch. I was like, God dang, I just can't use this. So overall, I think I did pretty well figuring out which are, I think, the best. But we all have our different opinions. And I'm seriously, I'm kind of shocked that the actual best eyeshadow was the most expensive. Because when it comes to makeup, I actually bought a palette, a Louboutin palette. Yes, I did. Yes, I fucking did. Because I wanted to know. It had no black. It didn't have a black in it. So it wasn't part of this at all. I bought it relatively recently. Because they have this little compact that's black spike and you have to buy it separately. And, you know, sometimes when you're medical shopping and looking at makeup, you shouldn't be allowed to have your credit card. And that was one of those purchases. That payoff is not worth the money. But the Tom Ford, to me, because I'm a makeup enthusiast, try not to be a collector. The Tom Ford to me is worth it because it will last for a long time and the eyeshadow is out of this world. Plus it gives me this one little, every time I use it, oh, it's luxury. But I also am of the opinion, if you're going to spend a shitload on a palette, that should be your daily. Why would you keep it for special occasions only and wear it like 4 times before the palette falls apart and it's so old, it's 10 years old, you've worn it 4 times and you spent $100 on this palette? Why would you do that? No, that's where your $2 eyeshadow comes in, when you're going to wear it like for one occasion. You know what I mean? when it's truly expensive and truly fine, wear that shit all the time. Wear it until you're like scraping the edge to get the last little bit of it out. My personal opinion. We all have our opinions. So I'm going to end it here because I went on way longer than I meant to. I talked a mile a minute, so there was a lot of information. Final summation, Pat McGrath, Tom Ford. Those two are the best because they have the least fallout. Great daily. Makeup Forever is a great daily. It's low on the fallout and it gets pretty dark. You're going to have to go for a little bit more effort and it doesn't last quite as long because Pat McGrath or Tom Ford, those suckers will last 12 hours. I mean, they will last 12 hours until you take that shit off. That's how good those eyeshadow brands are. For the lower end, I mean, Wet n Wild, come on. I was able to get it pretty black. The indie brands, the Looksy was really great. That one, I mean, they might be sold out. They're a small indie brand. They might be sold out. The Anastasia and the Sephora, if you can get those singles, fantastic. Melt Cosmetics, always great with the colors. A lot of fallout. So the highest fallout were Melt and Anastasia. And oddly, the Natasha Denona. That's my lowest on the totem pole. Anastasia and Maybelline. I think we're the. Ugh. I think the Urban Decay is fine if you're not me. But yeah, if you use that pat, dip a little, pat a little, dip a little, pat a little, and then just brush it on once you've got enough on there towards the top, you can keep your fallout low and you can get a really good black out of almost any black. The exceptions were actually the shitty ones. Like the Shiseido, that one sucked. And the Maybelline, that one sucked. The Natasha Denona, that one sucked. The rest I could get a pretty decent payoff. Urban Decay, I had a payoff. And it just kind of disintegrated pretty quick. But, you know, it is what it is. That's just me. So I think that... yeah, just figure out what your price is, and then black eyeshadow, I think you got to practice. It's one of those, it's like liquid eyeliner. The first time we all try it, it sucks, and we just paint raccoon eyes. Okay, so I'm going to end it here. Thank you for watching. Wait, I can't even remember how to end a video. Oh, so hey, thanks for watching. Until next time, as I try to slyly look at the little button to end the stream. Yes, we're going to end it there. And